Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, receive my greetings. I welcome all of you. Let us talk about small habits repeated daily will prevent wastage of energy, thus helping us to fight climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, once upon a time, my grandfather used to tell me that your tomorrow must be better than your today. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, if you want this to come true, you must start working on climate change now. Remember, small things done consistently will bring a big impact on our planet. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, putting off the lights when you don't need them saves energy. One day, Ban Ki-moon quoted by saying, "Saving our planet, lifting people out of poverty, advancing economic growth, these are one and the same fight." We must connect dots between climate change, water scarcity, energy shortage, global health, food security, and women's empowerment. He added by saying, "Solutions to one problem must be solutions for all." Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, saving our planet is easy as ABC. Do not leave water to overboil in order to save energy. Remember, what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary is not talent, intelligence, or background. It is the quiet, consistent discipline of habits. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, Jackie Spear quoted by saying, "Every day is Earth Day, and I vote we start investing a secure climate future right now." End of the quote. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, God is so good. He gave us the sun to give us light during the day. So, to save energy, do not switch on the lights during the day, but instead use the light from the sun. This will help us to save electricity, thus protecting our lovely Mother Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, Dr. Miles Munro, one of my favorite motivational speakers, quoted by saying, "The power of silence is one of the greatest strengths you can ever carry in life." Silence is not weakness, but a strategy. Silence is the language of wisdom, the shield of mature, and the secret weapon of the strong. End of the quote. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, using clay geckos instead of metal geckos is not a weakness, but a strategy. It is the language of wisdom, the shield of mature, and the secret weapon of the strong. This will help us to reduce cutting down of trees for the sake of our tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, one day Srinivas Mishra quoted, "If the environment is happy, people will laugh and grief will go away." End of the quote. So, ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, if you want to laugh and make your grief to go away, warm bathing water in the sun instead of using fire to prevent energy wastage. In addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, for us to prevent energy wastage, we need to use solar energy for cooking and for lighting. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, this is because solar give us clean energy. Leonardo DiCaprio quoted by saying, "Our planet alarm is going off, and it is the time to wake up and take action." End of the quote. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, Using a windmill, which is a clean source of energy to pump water instead of electricity, is a clean source of energy. Also, ladies and gentlemen, switching off the torches when it is not dark, all these small habits prevent energy wastage. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, if you want to know the future of our planet, don't consult the stars or wait for fortune to smile upon you. Look at your daily routines towards the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, love your Mother Earth. Join the race to make the world a better place. Conserve energy, save the environment. Be part of the solution, not part of the pollution. Pollution is not the solution. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, young boys and young girls, for choosing to listen to me.